You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Bulldog Hour's 3rd season. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be back. You know, we're getting to that point in the season where, you know, there's a lot of different things coming into play, and we hope to touch on a number of those in this episode.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we are conducting a show following a loss by Wilson, which hasn't happened in the month of October in a very, very long time. So we will be saying goodbye to the consecutive victory streak over LL Section 1 teams. But there is a lot on the bright side to talk about tonight, including a milestone win for the program in general and continuing other streaks that the teams over the last multiple decades have built upon themselves. So it's obviously not all doom and gloom. As we know, we had a win this past Friday night, got back in that W column, and we're excited to bring you the recap of the MT game and the Hempfield game, preview the Conestoga Valley game, and take a 1 week early look at the potential playoff schedule, because it's very, very likely, almost I think guaranteed, that Wilson will make the playoffs.
Yeah, so, you know, they have a little bit of business to kind of handle here in the last week, but, you know, the possibilities are wide-ranging, and, you know, and some of the media guys have been sending out possible scenarios, and really with the mid-pen, and I know we're not a mid-pen show, but with the mid-pen chaos, it comes up every week or every time we do the show. There's so much unsettled, and it's going to continue this last week because there are some crazy matchups this week in the mid-pen as well that'll stir things up. So because of that, you know, we'll take a look at some of the possibilities, but it's kind of fun to think about what could be in the next few weeks, not just next week on Friday night. So should be fun.
Yeah, there's going to be an entertaining end to the 2017 regular season. Crazy to think that we're already talking about that, but here we are.
Yeah.
Halloween just 2 days away. Week 10 kicks off, I'm sure for someone around the state, on Thursday, and then Friday we'll get the full dose of games, including Wilson hosting Conestoga Valley. But before we get to the recaps, the previews, and all the minutia, let's remind everyone about the business we got to take care of here. Follow and interact, multiple ways to do that. Hit up Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube to get everything from the Bulldog Hour and Wilson Bulldogs football in general. Check out at Bulldog Hour or at Wilson Bulldogs. You can also follow Justin and I at Coach Joe Mays and at Mr_Raffoff. And the entire back archive of the Bulldog Hour, including seasons 1 and 2 from 2015 and 2016, are available at youtube.com/user/Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We also accept emails, show@bulldoghour.com or joe@bulldoghour.com, or if you go to the website, there is a contact form for you there as well. And we always want to make sure we thank our sponsors, because without them, we probably wouldn't be able to keep doing this. May's Sandwich Shop, and my dad has been with us since the start. He's been very helpful. The company has over the last 3 years. We had a new contributor this year. We mentioned in the last few shows, but we'll say it again. Matt Cruz, thank you so much for your donation. And he helped us out last year, and just this past Friday night, we met him at Hempfield. We got to talk to him, and you'll be hearing from him in a little bit. But we do want to thank Andy Herr once again, because he picked up the Bulldog Hour tab on Friday night at the pizza place we went to after the victory over Hempfield. So thanks once again to Andy Herr for all his support over the years as well.
Yeah, any way you want to step up like that, we'll take that.
Yeah, we will take
thanks,
that.
Andy.
And not only do Justin and I appreciate it, but Justin Burke as well, my videographer. I'll give him a shout out here. I want to mention him, because while Justin's up helping the team on Friday nights and I'm doing pictures, well, we've been in high demand to get video out to the people, and we've been able to do that because of Justin Burke. He's a class of 2013 graduate. He was a senior on the fall of 2012 team, and he's really helped me out taking care of the video game. So if you've watched any of the video content the video content on Friday nights, the actual game streams. That is coming from us, and Justin Burke is taking care of that, holding the cell phone or the iPad, whatever the case may be. So we appreciate him, and if you see him or you see us, definitely tell him you appreciate his efforts. And I'd be remiss, we can't say their name, but they know who they are. So always thank our anonymous supporter. 3 years in a row, they've contributed to the show, and we appreciate them a lot. We want to make sure that these people get show T-shirts that have come in. Of course, we want to make sure that they get them. Andy, Bruce, the coaches have gotten theirs, the kids we've interviewed, but we have a shirt for Matt Cruz and our anonymous sponsors as well. So if you're interested in supporting the show, you can do that via sponsorships and advertising, these in-kind donations, and, I'll let Justin handle this next one.
Oh, likes and shares.
There we go.
Likes and shares.
He got it. He's on top of it.
Yeah.
Just spread the word. That helps a lot. So visit bulldoghour.com and get all that information that you need right there. All right, so we got a live show tonight. Obviously, we're doing that right now, but we are actually going to toss up the schedule a little bit. We're going to be back next week. Yes, 2 live shows in a row. So next Sunday at 8:30, following the Week 10 game versus Conestoga Valley. On Sunday, November 5th, we'll be here to wrap up the 2017 regular season and preview the playoffs.
Yeah, certainly hope to be making a preview as well. Yeah, so that would be hopefully it'll be another fun one next week.
Yeah, they got to take care of business, and if they take care of business, we will be in the playoffs. We're not dropping out of 8.
No.
And if they win and stuff happens in front of them, we'll talk about it more at the end, but Wilson has a very slim chance of hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. But like we said, handle our business first. But I think first we're going to get to some of the things that have happened the last few weeks before we start looking ahead too far.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the schedule that we posted at the beginning of the year. Crazy to think we're now in the far right column. The top one on the far right is the one coming up. And the other 5 are yet to be determined if those are going to take place with the Bulldogs. But we know November 3rd we're hosting Conestoga Valley. But we are going to recap the games against Hempfield this past Friday and Manheim Township 2 weeks ago right now. So things didn't go the Bulldogs' way 2 weeks ago at Manheim Township, the Week 8 game on October 20th. The Bulldogs fell to the Blue Streaks 38-14. That score is a little misleading. I know if you're looking at the box score or just looking at the final, a lot of people are going to think that Wilson got beat up pretty good. But I mean, in reality, with 7 or 8 minutes left in the game, it was 21-14.
No, yeah,
Wilson kind of got into desperation mode after a non-call and a fumble went against Wilson. Township maintained possession, scored on the next play, and then Wilson was out of their element trying to play from behind so late in the game. You start having to throw passes, maybe calls you don't want to call against a defense like that, and it just snowballed a little bit at the end. But it was a close game. Some crazy things happened, which we'll get to in the highlights, but all good things come to an end, and it was 6 days short of a decade without losing a section game. I guess the football gods deemed it was time for that to end.
Yeah, and when you look at it, like you mentioned, the score may indicate that it, or give you the impression it was a little more dominant than it was. But I don't know. To be fair, in my opinion, to Township, I feel like they had control, quote unquote control,
right.
the majority of the game.
I would have been surprised if
dominating...
they didn't win the way the game was going.
Absolutely. But like you said, it played itself out a little closer than the final score would indicate as well. So it's somewhere in between. It's not the dominant performance, but it wasn't like it was a complete toss-up either. So but it probably was a little closer. Well, it definitely was a little closer than the score indicated. But we'll kind of get through some of that.
Yeah, so we'll get to the highlights. We'll just mention some of the team stats before we move on. But first downs, Wilson actually had more first downs than Manheim Township, 15-11. But now you'll see in the next 2 categories they weren't able to do much with those opportunities. Wilson gained just 69 yards on the ground, whereas Township's got up to 162. Wilson under 100 passing yards at 95. Township just over at 109. Total yards, combining those, 164 to 271 in favor of the Blue Streaks. So Wilson unable to do much on offense other really than 2 drives. There were 2 drives, one beautiful to start the game. The opening drive was just exquisite. The Bulldogs looked like they were going to be able to go toe-to-toe and maybe pull this one out. Judging just by those first few minutes, they had a great drive the length of the field and got on the board with a score, a nice Yerg to Johnson touchdown pass. But they wouldn't get much going again then until right before halftime, and then that would be it. They wouldn't score it all in the second half. So offense had a little bit of trouble down in Neffsville. Time of possession, pretty even, though it actually favored the Bulldogs. That may surprise some people. 25-24 to Township's 22-36. And now this is a big one, although it's overshadowed just because Township struggled in the area as well. Wilson was just 3 for 12 on third down. The Blue Streaks 4 of 11. Fourth down, Township was perfect, 2 of 2. Wilson 50%, 2 of 4. And both teams were 100% in the red zone, though, each going 2 of 2. The biggest thing is Wilson unable to do much when they had the ball. They were able to hold on to the ball for a while, but they kind of turned their wheels, spun their wheels.
Get a first down or two, and then it kind of stalled out. And it seemed like, it wasn't, any one thing. Like, you don't look in where it's like, oh, it was penalties. They kept shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. Or, oh, they just missed a play here, missed a play there. It's kind of just like, this drive it would be one thing, the next drive it would be a different thing. But it certainly, they weren't clicking. After that first drive, they weren't really clicking much on offense. And that kind of showed. And it's tough to do that. It's tough to snap out of that funk against any team. And again, they're going against one of the better teams and one of the better defenses they're going to face this year. It's even harder then, So
they had to play close to a perfect game.
Right?
Was it a perfect game? Absolutely not.
No. So when you look at that, it's not enough to get you where you want or need to be at the end, and and that's how we end up with the result. It's, I don't know. It's kind of hard. We talked about it a lot. There's only so much you can do. It's not like I said, it's not like they're not prepared. It's not like they're not out there, trying their hardest. It's like, it's just, Township had it all going. Like, the two teams needed, or Wilson needed to play a close to perfect game, and they didn't. And Township, they didn't play a perfect game, but they played really well.
Yeah.
And that combination was not going to give us a favorable outcome for the Bulldogs on Friday night. If you would have told us that ahead of time, that Wilson plays, a good game, but not great, and Township plays a really good game, I don't think you would have had a lot of takers on that.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to this streak against the LL Section 1 teams, the consecutive wins ending, I think people were disappointed, but I think everyone is just in awe at it to begin with, that it had to come to an end at some point. When does a team not lose a game in their league for 10 years?
Right. And to be, like, if you look at it, it wasn't like they lost to Lebanon the week before.
Right.
Or they lost to, a Penn Manor team like this year.
For 68 games, they won the games they were supposed to win,
and the
few that they probably shouldn't or weren't expected to win.
Right.
And finally one where it was at best a toss-up.
Right.
We saw at the beginning of the season, a lot of people saying Township was the team to beat, caught up to them. But, 68, it'll be tough for anyone to match that. I know some people will say, like, look at Mifflin's run and the Burks won, but they had a loss in there.
Right. And it's going to be even tougher because LL teams are about to, at least the top section teams are about to lose a game each year because they're going to have the crossover game.
The crossover game doesn't count because it's a non-league game with an intersectional
because
team.
Wilson has a loss to Manheim Central in this stretch, but it was a true non-league game.
They may have two.
Right, it was a true non-league game. It was not a it was not a section game, so it didn't count. I know they lost at Manheim Central one year. I don't remember what year that was. It was a while ago.
No, I'm trying to think. Did they play them in 9, 10, 11, and 12?
I thought they only played them 2 years. I don't know that for sure, but I thought they only played them 2 years.
Yeah, but anyways, they've played and beat and lost to Manheim Central during this streak. So, but hats off to everyone. And I said it after the game to players, coaches, the staff, the training staff, the equipment staff, everyone that had a piece in this program, including family and friends and supporters of the program, the community. Like the Red and Eagle said, it's one of the greatest athletic achievements in Berks history. Yeah,
it is. And like you said, you're going to be hard-pressed to match that. So, but hey, the reality sets in, and, we'll take a look at it here, and then we'll kind of talk about hopefully, a little bit about how the team regrouped. So,
yeah, let's take a look at the highlights from the loss in Neffsville to the Manheim Township Blue Streaks here. So our Week 8 recap. I'm going to start off with the opening Bulldog drive here. The touchdown from Urig to Johnson that I alluded to earlier. A beautiful pitch and catch right there. That was perfect. And I'm hanging out down there taking pictures. But unfortunately, Township would drive right down the next series and tie it up. Mm-hmm. And that kind of took the momentum away from the Bulldogs, who controlled the first quarter. And then the Township got the ball back the next time, and in the Wildcat formation with Grayson Saladay, he takes it 40-plus to go up 14-7.
Yeah, so then Wilson is able to drive down again and get a score.
This is right before halftime.
Right.
Chris Roberson.
With maybe 30 seconds or something 35 seconds left before half. And then
this happens.
All chaos happens.
I'm pausing it here because it's one of those crazy plays that happens once a year in some game. A weird bounce. You think someone's down and they're not. Whatever be the case. Well, here we're going to see just a right place, right time moment from Manheim Township. You see Emge drop back, avoid the rush, throw the pass. The defender was interfered with, so it was a flag, but it actually bounced off the defender's back into another receiver's arm for the Blue Streaks, and that put them up 21-14 at halftime. And then Wilson we should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
This is in the third quarter here. I'll back it up a little bit.
So Wilson, instead of being tied at half, was down
with 1 second to go. It was 21-14. So the half ends. Wilson comes out. Third quarter here. They're driving close to midfield, and Urig is looking for freshman Tory Corson on the pass. And let's take a look at it again and then talk about it. So it looks like an interception, but then as he's coming to the ground, Troy ends up with the ball on his back. Now, it's really tough to say, but we do know for certain that the call that was made on the field was the incorrect call, because in no way could that ball be incomplete.
Right.
It had to be an interception or a completion.
Right. It had to be one or the other, and the refs weren't sure or didn't have the guts to call one or the other. So what they did was they just went and said incompletion.
So here it is again if you're watching. Urig ball looks picked, and Troy eventually comes down.
Ball doesn't hit the ground.
Ball never hits the ground, not incomplete. But here's the thing. Did the Township defender have control when he came down?
Right, and was he, when he was quote-unquote down, is he on top of Troy? Because that's not
He's also not down.
Right.
So then it could be an interception that is a fumble.
Right.
Yeah. So it's tough to tell, and obviously this isn't the crispest high def. The videographer is not the best, so a little bit of a focus issue. It's definitely not the equipment. It's definitely the person doing it, though. I don't know what to say about it because, obviously I'm taking digs at Justin here, but really, unless you have a 4K camera that's perfectly calibrated, I have no idea how you tell. And especially the ref's in the way too. Right. You can't even see when he's down.
Right. The thing is, and you and I both agreed, if they're going to call it an interception, please call it incomplete. So.
Right.
If that's the way it was going to go, and we don't know what they talked about. We don't know if they said it's either an incompletion or an interception. Well, then I'm glad they called it an interception or incompletion because then at least we had another shot. But
when it was live, I thought it was interception. So
I did
when I saw Troy with the ball and them debating, I was like, if you're going to call it incomplete, I'll take it because I think it's a pick.
Right.
Now, watching the replay, I'm back to 50-50. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And that's why I kind of understand why they're like incomplete because we don't know either.
Right.
But
and they don't have the luxury of seeing it again.
Right.
Like, it's just live, and I don't think they had any idea what to do. And you see they kind of get together here.
Right away. They start
and both
talking.
teams are like, first down.
So, but anyways, it was incomplete. The Wilson drive ended, and now here you're going to see the fumble. And I pause it right here when he first gets hit. He's going to get hit again and go to the ground. But where did the ball come out? And again, it's not clear enough to tell for sure. He fumbles. The ball is out there, and he's also on the ground. But when was the ball coming out is always the question. And right there, it's a clear recovery by Wilson, and we think we have the ball down a score. Unfortunately, they didn't see it that way, and again, it's another one of those, they don't have replay, and if they did, it better be crisp because it was really close.
Right, yeah. So that's one of those tough ones. And it's not these individually, like we've talked about this all year. It just seems like those types of bounces or breaks just haven't gone our way in any game.
Yeah.
It's
been a tough year for those luck of
it's
a
hard to
draw.
overcome that in a single game, but it feels like those bounces have just gone against us. Or like the ball bouncing off a defender into the end zone.
Right.
Or into the hands of another receiver. Like that, that those unfortunate things have happened a lot. And, that just kind of just helps a team that didn't really need any extra help.
What compounds this misery is that the next play, this happens.
Yeah.
It looks like it's played well, and they get a block, couple missed tackles. They're off to the races, and this is the one that essentially sealed the deal.
Yeah.
This put them up 2 scores with like 7.5 minutes to play. They get the ball back again after stopping Wilson. They kick a field goal. Now they're up 31-14. And now Wilson's in deep desperation mode. They just start chucking it up, almost basically 4 verticals. And this one's picked off and returned for a touchdown, I believe, by Saladay.
I believe so, yes.
Who was their best player in this game.
Yes.
They had a lot of good players, but Saladay stood out for sure. And now, again, we're down 38-14, and now once more another deep pass intercepted, and that's pretty much how it would end. They would get in victory formation, and we would see the final score, and 38-14, Blue Streaks beat the Bulldogs.
Yep. So, as we mentioned, there's not a lot else to really, say about, the team or the game. I know we have a few stats we'll run through.
Yep.
But, it was one of those where we needed everything to kind of go our way, including the things we can control and some of those bounces, and it just didn't happen. So, you know what? If you have those games once every 10 years, hey, what can you say?
Right. It's tough, It is what it is. Obviously, everyone would have wanted to win. I think everyone likes to see it get to that next 10 digits. It was so close to 70. I think we wanted to see it get there. But at that point, though, everyone's like, "Well, get to 75. 75. That's a good. It would just keep spiraling, and no one would ever be happy. But it's an incredible accomplishment, and anyone that had a hand in it, man, hats off to you." So let's run through some stats here from the game for the individuals. Connor Jurg was 15 of 27 for 95 yards, 2 touchdowns passing to Johnson and Roberson. He also rushed 9 times for 12 yards. Iggy, tough going, 20 carries for 50 yards rushing, but he was held to 2 receptions for -2 yards receiving.
Yeah.
So they definitely
That's
shut
something
him
you
down.
haven't seen this year.
Not only in the rushing game, meager yards per carry, but he was not able to get it going in the air either. Now, McFoy made up for that a little bit. He contributed 7 catches for 55 yards, but his 2 rushes went for just 7 total. I mentioned Johnson had a touchdown from his tight end spot. He caught 4 balls for 20 yards. Roberson, besides the 1 touchdown, he also had another catch, 2 for 22. Defensively, Andrew Weller, outside linebacker, 6 tackles, 1 of them for loss on the sack. Hatley had 5 tackles, half of that a loss, and Price also 4 tackles in the game. So this is always a tough call after a loss like this where nothing seems to get going on offense. Where do you go with our player of the game? And, we just kind of looked at the defensive side of the ball, and we went with someone who we've seen here before, and we're going to give it to him for his efforts against Manheim Township, and that is senior wide receiver and outside linebacker Andrew Weller. Again, I said it before, but I'll say it again. 6 tackles, one of them for loss on the sack. So congratulations to Weller for earning his second Player of the Game award. I'm sure he'll tell me that it's worthless because both of them have come in losses.
Yeah.
And we talked to him after the Hempfield game, so we'll hear from Andrew in a little bit. So, anything else to say about the Township game?
No, I mean, it was one of those things, like we said, all good things have to come to an end at some point. So here it became, all right, so they're the first Bulldog team to have to come back from a league loss in 10 years. How do they respond? And, fortunately, we were able to see how they respond. And, the tough thing was they didn't have a team that was going to roll over, and now teams, smelled kind of a little bit of blood in the water kind of thing. Everybody wants their shot. Everybody wants their shot against Wilson. We have that every year. But, all of a sudden teams maybe there have been times where some of the writers have talked about how, like, the streak is why Wilson has won, because, like, teams start to get in their head, like, and while the pressure, is on Wilson to win, there's also pressure on that other team because they realize, they know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
And you could say that about Hempfield 2 years ago when we went there.
Sure.
And that was, to either tie or to break the record for the
I can't remember
wins.
The Manheim Central record.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, and that was a huge game and all this stuff. And, that's one where a number of writers were like, the streak prevailed in this game, like, just because that's what it was. So to not have that, sometimes, teams start thinking, oh, well, this isn't the same old. Well, Wilson had to prove those people wrong, and fortunately, they were able to get back on track.
Yeah. And before we talk about the Hempfield football game, we actually caught up with our buddy Andy Herr, we mentioned earlier. He was there to cover the Bulldogs against the Black Knights in Landisville, and we're trying to get some interviews from people that cover the team as well or are interested in high school football. We brought you an interview with EasternPAFootball.com's Bruce Badgley a few weeks ago, and here we are with his teammate at EPA Football, Andy Herr, and Justin and I interviewed him before the game just this past Friday night, so we're going to hear from Andy right now. All right, joining us now is Andy Herr, a media member and reporter from EasternPAFootball.com. Thank you for joining us, Andy, here on a little impromptu interview for the next episode of the Bulldog Hour.
Yep, well, thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure.
So you're our second guest here in this little Meet the Media profiles here. We got your buddy Bruce Badgley a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And we're glad to be talking to you here before Wilson takes on Hempfield here in Week 9. I can't believe it's Week 9 already.
I still can't believe we got 2 weeks. I just want to start the playoffs already.
It's time to get to that point where the games really matter. So we'll go through the same questions that we asked Bruce.
Yep.
And I know you've seen that interview, so I'm sure you're ready.
I studied it.
You can one-up him,
That won't be hard to do, trust me.
So how long have you been covering high school football?
For football, this is actually my second year. Got started with Eastern PA back in last year, 2016, but I've always been a fan my whole life. I've been going to games before I went off to college at Nebraska, and then obviously since I got back, which was the fall of 2013. So I've been going to games this whole time, but basically the way this all took shape is I was tweeting from the LL All-Star game on Memorial Day weekend back in 2016, I believe it was, and Bruce actually stumbled on my tweets and stuff, and he thought, wow, this is perfect. I'm a Berks guy, but I'm also a District 3 guy. If we have an LL guy, Andy, you look like the perfect profile for this. Why don't you come aboard and help me out with this? So got the lowdown on it, couldn't pass it up, and like I said, the privileges as far as meeting the teams and the coaches and everything, man, I couldn't ask for more. And meeting great guys like you, too, that doesn't hurt as well.
Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate all the coverage you, Bruce, EPA, and all the guys in
Absolutely.
District 3 give us all the time. You kind of alluded to this already, but do you cover another sport? I know you do, but why don't you let us know what you do in the winter?
I do. In the wintertime, I'm all about LLHoops.com. So anything and everything as far as LL boys basketball, I'm kind of your source. I have another source, obviously, Del Jackson, who runs LLHoops.com. He is the czar of everything, but I am his right-hand man, if you will. And also this year, Bruce is actually going to be helping us out. We're going to have a little Berks County beat. He's going to be out and about on weeknights, and then me and him are going to tag team maybe an LL game of the week on a Friday night or so. Maybe we'll put up the replay locker coverage and really get a whole like Super Bowl type atmosphere for a Friday night, or a Berks and LL intersectional matchup. So really looking forward to that, and I'm waiting for hoops, man. It's already chilling up, man.
You're a basketball guy,
Oh, yeah.
so you're just waiting a couple more weeks. Once
weeks.
football playoffs are well underway, we know basketball is here to stay as well.
I'm multitasking. We already had some of the schedules come out today. I've been retweeting like crazy. I've been looking at some of the attractive matchups to get to, so I'm all ready to go.
Yeah, it's cool to get the overlap between the two of you. You're a basketball guy who decided to do football. Bruce is a football guy. Now he's going to do basketball. And he mentioned that on our interview a few months back, that he was going to be working with LL Hoops. So that's really cool. Excuse me. Now, how did you get the job with Eastern PA football? How did you become a media guy for them?
Kind of went over it already. I mean, I was doing the LL All-Star game, the Tri-County All-Star game a couple years ago. I was doing the live scoring updates and everything, and like I said, it caught Bruce's attention because obviously he wasn't doing it, nobody from Eastern PA was, and he kind of thought, wow, again, a great guy to cover the LL beat. I was already kind of doing a little bit of independent work on the side for a couple of sites, but I mean, this is like the full-fledged, legit, organization I'm with as far as covering football. So like I said, I've been blessed to have the opportunity, and I just hope I'm doing a good job. I don't know. I mean, people that read my stuff, they might think otherwise, but I don't know. I'm trying my best. So
hey, you're doing great, and we
appreciate
appreciate the coverage, and not just the Wilson stuff, but anything in the LL. Get the league's name out there and across District 3, and it's nice to see it's not always the marquee matchup that you get to. You make sure you hit all the teams throughout all the sections in the league.
Right, and that's another thing too about Eastern PA that I don't know a lot of people might know, but we have no sort of commitments. We have full reign to go wherever we want on any single night. So if ever you see me out and about at your game, I want to be at your game. So Hempfield and Wilson tonight, I want to be here. And I think that just helps naturally, because if you're kind of pigeonholed in a game maybe you don't really want to do, maybe your coverage won't be as fantastic, but obviously if you want to be somewhere, just naturally your enthusiasm is going to come out, and hopefully I bring that to everybody. And you're right, I do try to cover as many teams as possible. As far as the basketball side, I'm probably the only person on earth the last 3 years that has seen every single LL boys basketball team at least once, so that's kind of my claim to fame, I guess, on the basketball side, but I love it. I mean, just interacting and going everywhere is just my pride and joy. It's a labor of love for sure.
What's your favorite part of covering high school football?
To be honest, just meeting all the people. I mean, because before, when I was just a little dude going to games, and even since I've been, back from school, I was just sitting in the stands and watching everything from afar. But really getting to know these coaches and the psychology behind everything, I mean, it's just awesome. And like I said, I mean, if I can be recognized in a little bit, I mean, that never hurts. So, I mean, I just love interacting with everybody and, just getting exposed, I guess. That's just really a thrill for me.
Now, this is kind of a weird question. We asked the Bruce. We just want to, kind of dispel if there's any issues you've ever run into with people wondering about the job, or maybe some misconceptions about you as a Scholastic Media member. Is there anything out there you've ever gotten you're like, well, that's not accurate at all?
Not really. Like I said, everything's been good for me. Unless you're trying to get me to think of something I'm not thinking of. That's possible too. I might not be thinking of it right now, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
No, there's no hidden agenda or hidden question. I
don't know what I like about the Bulldog Hour.
If you're accused of any biases or types of reporting that you're like, that's not me, that's not how I do this.
No, I mean, and I went to Warwick, so Warwick is my alma mater, but I have no dead set allegiance to them. Like I said, I've been going to games forever. I've seen everybody. I was technically a McCaskey fan growing up for watching their basketball teams. I mean, Perry Patterson, Dustin Salisbury, Hakeem Washington. Now I'm just naming all the football guys. Naquan Lee.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm just an LL guy at heart, so no biases from me.
Well, those are the guys that were playing while I was playing, so I'm very familiar with those names. What is the most memorable game you have covered to date?
For football-wise, I would say it was last year's Brave Bowl, Pequay Valley and Octorara. Pequay Valley came all the way back late. I forget what the score was. I think they were down by 2 touchdowns or something in the fourth quarter. A lot of people don't know, but Octorara is a huge rival down there. They're in Chester County. They straddle the Lancaster County line with PV, and I think people are going to be exposed to that rivalry with Octorara coming in here next year. But it's a big deal down there. Pequay Valley got them the year before in a close game, and like I said, they rallied. It didn't really look like they were going to come back, but thankfully for their case, they did, and just the emotion on the sidelines after the game was just so raw and so real, and that was so cool to see. I mean, normally, you guys know, after a game, everybody huddles up on their own side of the field, coach gives a speech and whatever. This didn't happen on that night. Players were in the stands, fans were down on the field, and you just saw coaches going around to each other with tears in their eyes saying, like, guys, this is what this is all about. And I mean, it doesn't get any better than that as a high school football fan.
An awesome experience. What a great atmosphere. Who's the most dominant football player you've covered that maybe not as a media member, maybe one you remember watching of the last few years when you're getting into this?
It's got to be Micah. I mean, it has to be. I mean,
that's kind of, it's
he's just a freak.
I almost maybe should ask, outside of Micah Parsons, who's the most dominant? But no, that's the obvious answer. That's what Bruce said. And we kind of said the same thing when we interviewed him. Parsons has to be it, right? I've never seen someone of that talent.
He and this Harrisburg team, he's a once-in-a-generation player, or once-in-a-lifetime player, really, and this is a once-in-a-generation Harrisburg team. So I hope Harrisburg is enjoying the ride because, I mean, this is going to be one for the ages. And hopefully for their sake, they're able to bring the state title home because they got a darn good shot at doing so.
All right, well, I think Justin has a question for you, so we'll let him throw this one in.
I'm going to modify the question just a little bit. So what's your favorite place
I knew it.
that you've covered
I knew it.
a football game? But I'm also going to ask for basketball, too. I know we've talked about this before, so I'm lobbing a softball up there. You don't have to hit it because I know we've talked about it before, but I had to ask. I couldn't not ask in this situation.
You're setting this up for me right on the tee, and I'm going to stripe this one down the fairway. Yeah, which is something never happens on the golf course in real life. But football-wise, this is a great place. You guys are a great place. I call it the Taj Mahal. I haven't been to the Taj Mahal in a couple of years, so I'm due for a visit. As far as atmosphere for football, I'm going to say CV, Conestoga Valley, just because, I mean, it's a brand new facility. It's a fast track. They have the concession stand that just reeks of like the barbecue and the burgers, and the smoke just wafts over the grandstand. You see it in the light. And then if you look off into the one corner, that when you're looking from the press box, all you see is a cornfield. And I mean, how can you get much more Lancaster County Friday night football than that?
I got some beautiful pictures there last year.
Yeah. Basketball-wise, there's no doubt about this one. This one takes the cake. It's on the hill at Columbia, your old stomping grounds. There's nothing like seeing a basketball game at Columbia. I mean, the gym is so small. It's just a cinder block encased gym. Sound just bounces off the wall. Columbia's an awesome town, even if they're not having a great year. I mean, they're a small town. Well, they are a small town, but they have like a big city feel to them. And I mean, you know that as well as anybody. I mean, they'll travel anywhere. They travel up the hill every night. I mean, it's so tight where if someone's going out to the concession stand to get some snacks or something, the refs will have to stop the game on a side out and let everybody go or everybody stop. I mean, definitely that is the place to check out. I'm excited to hopefully Bruce will be game to go up there.
Awesome.
We can give that the Super Bowl treatment. Coach Glover.
I was going to say, Coach Glover got him going in the right direction.
He's my man.
So
Special note about Coach Glover, he's actually my quote-unquote basketball trainer up the road here at Spooky Nook. So
nice.
He has me in the gym trying to work on my threes, but I don't think I need much work on that. but he's always a great help as far as basketball-wise or just even getting me in the gym-wise. So he's a fantastic guy.
I know you've been covered some great matchups, some big rivalry games, some ones that have huge implications in the playoffs. You mentioned, just before we started this, you're doing Wyomissing Catholic next week, the backyard brawl. But what is a game you want to witness? Whether it's a state title, a specific matchup.
Yeah.
What's one out there that you're like, I'd love to see that?
To steal an answer from Bruce, it would be, in my case, an LL team, maybe kind of going through the playoffs and going all the way to state finals. As far as big school football, we touch about this on our show all the time. If you come out of District 3, you're in the Final Four. Mm-hmm. So you got a great shot to make the state final anyway. I think a more quote-unquote realistic goal or a more realistic game that could happen that I'd like to cover would be Ephrata's first win. I mean, I've been Ephrata's biggest cheerleader here. I mean, I go to games every year. I like seeing the progress they're making every single year. And everybody's been saying they're close, and they are. They're going to get some help with some of the teams that are coming into Section 3 next year than some of the teams that are. I've seen quite a few of those teams. And seeing Ephrata as well, it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen next year. So hopefully I'll try and scour the schedule and see what's a winnable game. Because, I mean, like I touched about with the PV and Octorara game from last year, just that raw emotion. I mean, how much more emotion can you get than a team that'll win their first game since Halloween 2012? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's one game. Hopefully, I'm lucky enough to cover, but even if I'm not, I hope Ephrata gets this losing streak snapped here pretty soon. So.
All right, the last 3 questions are all Wilson-centric now, so we'll get you off the hook. We'll get you some Bulldog
Or now I'm on the hook. Now I don't know.
On the Bulldog Hour here. First up, what's the most entertaining Wilson game you've covered? Now, you say you haven't been to Gursky in a while.
Right.
When was the last, well, what is the biggest Wilson game, the most entertaining one you've covered, or maybe that you just have been at?
Right. Well, I think it goes as far as a witness and doing coverage as well, and it was last year's Warwick game. I mean, we touch about this all the time, how, you know, a Warwick alum, I guess I'm a little biased because I know that history maybe a little better than other people, but last year Warwick gave you guys a fight, and I mean, I think all things considered, and I think I'm safe to say this since we're a year removed, I mean, Wilson was kind of lucky to get out of Dodge with that win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
we talked about it on the show.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the best Wilson game I saw, and I mean, you guys talked about it last year too. It's kind of weird because Wilson did win, but it did kind of feel like a loss in some ways, so it was kind of an odd scene, but I mean, Warwick had that Hail Mary at the very end. They weren't able to get it done, but that was a fantastic game, and luckily for Wilson's sake, you guys were able to pull it out. So.
Well, that was actually the first time we met in person.
Correct.
We've been acquaintances online for a while.
Right.
We got to meet you that week, but yeah, we feeling a little weird after the game because man, it was an interesting environment there.
Yeah.
So, what's the most exciting Bulldog player you've seen play?
Man, that's a tough one. This isn't meant to be a cop-out answer, but it's going to be. I mean, Iggy's a great player. He jumps to mind. I'm kind of too young to remember Chad when he was quarterbacking. I mean, I did see one game when he played McCaskey in 03, 01. But I'm still too young to really.
That was a loss.
Yeah.
We got crushed.
Yeah. I'm still kind of too young to comprehend how just fantastic he was. But for me, when I think of Wilson football, you guys touch on this all the time. It's just the fact that it's another reload all the time. I mean, some of the same faces stay every single year, but by and large, it's a new cast of characters, a new senior class that's leading the way. And for me, that's just awesome to see because you guys are always consistently there. You're not just relying on one bell cow to bring you home for 2 or 3 years, and then once he graduates, gets his diploma, then it's kind of like, geez, where do we go from here? But Wilson's always steady Eddie. They're always going to be there. That's never going to change, at least in my mind. So that's, again, I know that's a cop-out answer, but I think it's also a good answer, and one you guys probably want to hear. So.
Hey, that's fine with me.
And it's the truth.
Last thing, just closing thoughts for us on the Wilson program. You know, you touched on it a little bit just now, but you know, just what is your opinion as an alum of a rival school,
right.
An LL team? What are your thoughts about the Wilson football team?
It's first class. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean. And even the extra stuff like you guys doing an entire show revolving around the team. I mean, I would be a fan of anybody that does that with any LL team, but for you guys, you obviously have a specific market for that. I mean, there's just such a love, such a passion, and I mean, you guys take it seriously, and it's the real deal. And like I said, I know you guys do a great job. Trying to look at the time. I'm hoping not to get run over by the guys.
Yeah, so we're ending on a good time here.
Yeah, so. I mean, other than that, I have nothing but great things to say. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully I bring you guys a win. I mean, I know you're looking for it. You got work to do here yet this season, but it's going to be tough tonight. Hempfield's a very dangerous team, and I know this will air after the game, but we shall see. It should be a good one for sure.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate your support you've given us over these years, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. And who knows, maybe next year before the season starts, we can get you in studio for an entire episode.
Let's do it. And I got to do it right before we go off the air, just since you guys are here. Go Bulldogs.
All right, thanks, Andy.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that was our lengthy interview with Andy Herr. You know, we never think that these are going to go on, 5 minutes. You know, it's like 12 minutes later.
Right,
know.
Well, because it ends up being just like when you and I are talking about stuff, we end up like talking about it instead of more just straight up interviewing things. We've had a lot of good discussions with Andy. A couple highlights from that. My favorite part is when he gives Columbia the shout out, because that's always going to be
which is instigated by yourself.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I kind of made him do it, but that's good.
But you knew he was. You knew
I'm
that
glad
was
he
going.
right. Yeah, Andy abides and and throws me a bone and we move on. But in all honesty, I think it sums it up when we ask the Wilson specific questions, and he talks about how the Warwick game last year, and that's one we've talked about a lot, but how in a win it kind of felt like a loss in the moment. And I said to you, like, that's the type of program you want to be. You want to be a type of program where you can have wins. Now, obviously, you hope to have wins that are great every time. That's your goal. But when you are a program where the bar is so high that you can have wins that just aren't good enough, that tells you about how high the bar is set, and that is how it is for Wilson, and that's a good thing, because I know Coach Doms all the time talks about this, whether it's school or whether it's for the football team. Like, the bar does not change. The bar is excellence, right? And you need to strive for excellence. He's not going to lower the bar, so the expectations are high, and so coming out of a disheartening loss, something that. You can't let one loss become two. I know Andy talked about that in his article that he wrote up, so you should check that out on Eastern PA.
Yep, Eastern
football.
PA football.
You can't let one loss become two, and Wilson, had a lot to battle here because Hempfield was no slouch.
No, not at all. And you heard Andy mention that, and he kind of. We knew going in, and I think we talked about on the show, that this wasn't going to be an easy game. One, it's on the road, which is never easy in high school football. Two, this team had won 4 in a row and had been putting up a lot of points.
Yeah, 50-some points a game.
And you're going to see the quarterback and
I think it's the
receiver.
second time this season we've gone against a team who has been averaging 50-some points a game in the games leading up
Warwick, the first one.
Right, yeah. So, man, we've had some of these offenses come against us when they're clicking.
So Andy was confident. I think we were getting there. And, we were able to get it done. As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Wilson gets the win, 21-10. Again, maybe one that's a little bit, even though it's only 11-point separation, it probably may look bigger than it really was or felt, because we didn't get ahead until the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Right.
And we're able to hold on because of a great special teams play and then some good offensive clock management and then defensive effort, and we'll see all of that when we do the highlights. But Wilson beats Hempfield 21-10. Get back in the win column, start a new winning streak. Got a picture of Troy's number 1 after the game for posterity's sake, although I did see Jeff Reinert said something about a new streak starting, and as soon as he did, I sent him the photo, and he said, there it is. So I wasn't going to send it out because I was just like, well, I want to have it. And you mentioned this. You're like, I'll feel awful if they go and get into the 30s and 40s again, and I don't have the 1.
Right, because to have it, some people are like, oh, it's a 1.
I know, that's why I didn't
but it is 1. But you know what? Hey, it is 1, and you know what? We need to get it to 2 next week. That's the mindset.
Absolutely. So this win gives the Bulldogs a record of 6-3. That total right there, the win total, guarantees Wilson a 42nd straight winning season, which is just crazy to think about, that it dates back that far into the mid-70s. And again, we've mentioned that the non-losing streak got to 54 this year. So 2 streaks still going on as well. Another huge milestone for the program also occurred with the victory, and that was win number 550. So we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But team stats, again, relatively even. A very hard-fought game by both teams. Bulldogs had 18 first down, Black Knights 17. Rushing yards, both teams stayed on the ground a lot. Wilson had 239. Hempfield 180. Passing yards, just a yard under 100 for Uhrig at 99. And Himmelsbach for Hempfield had 143. Total yardage, very close. Wilson 338 to Hempfield's 323. Time of possession, though, dominated by the Black Knights. And if you were at the game, it felt like it. I always felt like Wilson was on defense.
Yes.
Wilson had it under 20 minutes, and Hempfield had it for nearly 30.
Yeah. It was heavily in favor, and it was interesting. So Andy was in the press box that I was on top of videoing the game, and when at halftime we went down, and he's just like, man, like watching the game, and looking at what you would expect the stats to be, like he thought they would be more lopsided than they were, and the score wasn't lopsided at all. It was 3-0 at halftime. So.
Yeah. the
3-0 Hempfield they have.
Right. The biggest reason that the Bulldogs didn't have the ball as much as they should have is that they were stopping Hempfield on first and second down, but when they get the third down, Hempfield got 14 third down opportunities and they converted 7. So they had 50% in that area. Now, Wilson did hold up on fourth down. They only allowed 1 of the 3 to be converted by the Black Knights. And Wilson got their 1 that they needed as well. And we're going to see actually one of the Hempfield attempts in the highlights. Red zone, both teams missed on 1 occasion. Wilson was 1 of 2. Hempfield 2 of 3. So why don't we take a look at the the highlights now from the game in Landisville on Friday night and see the Bulldogs and Black Knights battle it out. All right, so October 27th, Bulldogs at Black Knights. Opening possession, Hempfield drove down the field, and we're going to see a nice hit by Trevor Hatley on defense here. He unloaded. Believe he broke his finger on this play. He was shaking it a lot and got it wrapped. If not, it was hurting him pretty good. But Hempfield did stall. Bulldogs defense stepped up, got that field goal, and then the rest of the first half will go with no points. Wilson had some trouble holding on to the ball, keeping possession. Right there, you see a fumble that, thankfully for the Bulldogs, rolls way down into Hempfield territory, and it wouldn't end up hurting them. At halftime, it was 3-0 because here in the red zone, the Bulldogs defense held up on fourth down, barely stopping the stud wide receiver who's committed to Temple, though apparently is getting looks from Wake Forest. Now we're going to see another nice out pass from Jurg to Angel Martinez. You'll hear his name again shortly. But that would be it for the Wilson offense because that possession would end here with this interception. Again, same player that we talked about on offense. I believe it's Martin Robinson is his name.
He's
number
really
6.
Good.
Really good. He's been playing 3-year player. I remember him 2 years ago. Now we're going to see a little bit of the Wilson defense step up here, sacked by Eddie Ortiz, and I'll be talking about him a little bit in a few minutes. And Wilson ball now here, and a huge pass in the third quarter from Jurg to Roberson. I believe a 40-plus yard gain on that ball. And then they go back to Iggy, who we didn't have any highlights from him in the first half because he was bottled up. But in the second half, he started getting things going and had multiple gains of 10, 15-plus yardage. And he would also finally get into the end zone, as you're going to see here on the next play. And I believe this play was on fourth down. What's the most unique thing about this play? Jurg's under center.
Yeah.
How often have you seen that in the last few years? So the first Wilson extra point attempt here, good. Wilson goes up 7-3. Unfortunately for them, it wouldn't last as Hempfield would drive right down the field and score on their next possession, pushing their lead 10-7. Bulldogs would come right back with a heavy dose of Reynoso here, getting a nice big run.
Was this the drive where they had 6 plays, all 6 were runs to Iggy?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then he eventually breaks one now here on the first play of the fourth quarter. I believe this was a 24-yard touchdown scamper by Reynoso, his second of the game. The extra point from Frankie Cox is good, so Wilson now goes up 14-10. On Hempfield's next drive, they forced a 3-and-out and a punt, but the punter is grazed by a Wilson defender and gets the running into the kicker first down. Thankfully, Wilson forced another punt, and then Nick Johnson up the middle punt block, scoop and score, Angel Martinez. And that was a huge play for the Bulldogs. The extra point from Frankie Cox is good, and Wilson goes up 21-10. And obviously, we know that's where it'll end. We're going to see some defensive highlights here, as when needed most, they stepped up a couple sacks. You're going to see Trevor Hatley come in on this one. The next play, you're going to see a nice team effort. I believe Chris Price is in on this one eventually. Oh, no, this one's Quinn Sprout and I think Wyatt Schonauer. And now we're deep into the fourth quarter. Hempfield needs one, and there's your team sack. Multiple guys all over Himmelsbach. Bulldogs get the ball back, need to run a few plays. They get a nice end around from Abdul McFoy. And then one from Iggy up the middle. Just worked that clock until they got enough yardage and wasted enough time to get into victory formation. So Wilson wins at Hempfield 21-10. Again, that's the 42nd straight winning season for Wilson and win number 550 for the program. So, there you have it. There's the highlights from Hempfield.
Yeah, like we mentioned, it's a little bit of a slow start. Offensively, they got things going, but then it would just be, something here, something there. 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
Killed them after the one drive started at the 9 and 1. They had a couple drives start deep in their own territory because the first punt went out of bounds at the 2. For Hempfield. So they had a couple long drives out to midfield and then they turned it over.
Yep.
So that kind of killed it.
The name of the game right there.
And if you're able, and they were moving the ball, so if they were able to move it down and get a score, you drive 90-some yards twice in the first half for scores, man, that's going to set the tone for the game. But it wasn't, and it's 3-0. And at that point, you start to worry. Are they going to start to doubt? Well, no, they came out and the defense made some adjustments and they really started to shore things up. And Hempfield still got some yards, but like you said, they didn't really. I mean, they got close down towards the end, but the defense really stepped up, played very strong in the second half for the most part. Played really well. They were out. It was a bad matchup with, is it Martin Robinson again?
Yeah, I think David Martin Robinson.
Yeah, so it's a tough matchup for anyone, because he's big and can go up and get the ball, as he did. There were a couple plays where I know the defender's there, and he just goes up and gets it because he's taller and can jump high, and it's just a tough position. So, but anyway, Wilson was able to get it going offensively enough, and then was able to come through on some special teams plays and kind of get a combined effort and turn things around pretty quickly there once they got it going in the second half.
Yep. All right, so we got the win, so we grabbed a few players. I actually tried to talk to the special teams hero, Angel Martinez, but I didn't track him down quick enough, and they had a 2-mile walk to the locker room because it's really weird where they go. So I grabbed a couple players after the game to talk about the victory and number 1 and hopefully a new winning streak. So we're going to hear from senior wide receiver outside linebacker Andrew Weller and freshman wide receiver safety Tory Corson. All right, we're post-game after the victory over Hempfield. Guys, close one, early, resiliency showing in the second half. A special teams touchdown, something we hadn't gotten enough this year, but came at a great moment after Iggy and the offense put us up 14-10. Weller on the punt team, yes. Johnson with the block, Martinez with the scoop. What was it like being out there for that play?
I honestly didn't even realize that we blocked the punt. I thought, I turned to go to the wall, and then I just see, where's the ball? And I turn around and I see Angel scooping and going. I know Angel's fast enough. No one's catching him once he's in the open field.
Once he's got possession, he's gone.
Yeah. And then
something's happened.
I was dancing down the field having a good time because I knew, at that point I knew the game was over. We won it.
Yeah. Now both of you guys play a huge role on defense, and you got to see some very strong players in their quarterback, number 11, Himmelsbach, and number 6. What a receiver he is, and they used him in a variety of different ways that not only did you see him often, but you did as well from your linebacker spot. What's it like going up against talent like that? I believe he's headed to Temple.
It's good competition right there, especially when he's got that height like that. Even if you're on him good, throw it up to him. Still get it.
His combination of size and speed it's just something. It's really hard to prepare for.
It's a great challenge out in the field, though.
Yeah, you have to get multiple bodies on the dude, and you have to flow the ball. You can't let him by himself.
Let's walk in this way. So, all right, guys, coming off a tough loss last week to Manheim Township, how are you guys able to brush it off, move on, and get your heads ready for this game against Hempfield and not, get caught up in the emotion of last week?
Just gotta forget about it. It's a whole new season now. If you want to go to the playoffs, you gotta keep your head up.
Yeah, every game from here on out, it's a playoff game.
Yep.
It's do or die at this point, and basically that's what's pushing us to play our best, because we know, especially me, I'm not going to get another opportunity.
We're only guaranteed one more game, so we make everything fast.
Guys, great defensive effort. 5.5 tackles for you, Troy. A breakup. Weller, 4.5 from you. The tackle for a loss. What did Coach Wahlberg preach this week after the Township game last week? What was he telling you to focus on to play the Black Knights?
Well, he was saying that their quarterback, he likes to run the ball more than he likes to pass. So you just have to ensure that you're not going to let him run around.
And he also warned us about 6 a lot.
Yeah. Now, we thought like the running back was going to be a lot tougher. I mean, he still was good. It's just he
wasn't a big threat.
He didn't have as big a threat as the quarterback at number 6.
A little interactivity with the band in the background. That's all right. We like it. We won't keep you here much longer. Now get to go home, senior night, homecoming against Conestoga Valley, and you get that victory. You're pretty much guaranteed a spot in the playoff field, probably a 6, 7, or 8, depending on how things play out. If you get the opportunity, there's teams in front of you that you've played already to see again. Would you want to see Township Dolphin, a team that's already gotten you once this year, for a little revenge?
I would love to see Central Dolphin. I didn't really get to play in that game.
Me neither.
So
that's true.
That's like, if I get the opportunity, I want it.
You want Dolphin?
I want a second shot at any team.
Sure.
I think this district is competitive. Anyone in the field can win it.
This is a unique year. This district is up for grabs. Right now, the best team probably, at least on paper, looks like Cumberland Valley. They're rolling against CD East tonight. But it really is. You get in, you can make some noise. And, I know the coaches have been telling you that. Coach Toms, in postgame last week at Township, recounted the years 2007, where they went 7-3 and made it to the Final Four. Then just a few years later, actually Coach Burke here, his junior year, they were road warriors. They went on the road, beat Dan DeBoone, beat Cumberland Valley, and fell just short in the district championship. So there's a lot left to play for. We look forward to seeing you guys at home next week against CV, and then in the playoffs. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so we are thankful for Weller and Corson taking the time after the win over Hempfield to talk to us a little bit about playing following the Manheim Township loss and some of the great players that Hempfield had, and looking forward to Conestoga Valley and the playoffs. So let's not waste any time and let's join them. I guess we first got to recap the players of the game, the stats, before we move on. So let's quickly do that. Stats at Hempfield: Connor Uhrig, 5 of 9 for 99 yards passing, 4 rushes for 4 yards. Reynoso, 31 for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. Abdul, 3 for 28 yards rushing, 2 for 33 receiving. Roberson had the big catch for 43 yards. Martinez had the 16-yard catch. He also had the punt block touchdown. Nick Johnson, 9.5 tackles and 1 punt block. Hatley, 6 tackles, 2 for loss, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. Corson, 5.5 tackles, the breakup. Price, 5 tackles, 1 for loss being the sack. Weller, 4.5 tackles, 1 for loss. And Ortiz with 4.5 tackles, 1 of them for loss being the sack. And Magalotti also 4.5 tackles. So now that we're past week 9, a couple of season or career updates here. Connor Uhrig has moved into 4th on the career passing yardage at Wilson with 3,397 yards. Zach Zwizig's 39.01 is 3rd, so he has a little bit of ways to go, but depending on how many games they get, he could find that depending on the offensive performance. No one's catching Chad anytime soon. Chad Henne is number 1 at 7,071 in the Wilson record book. Connor is also tied for 6th in program history for career touchdown passes with Jake Templin at 32. Tony Sapola's 34 is 5th. That'd be next up for Uhrig, followed by Zach Zwizig and Eric Hetrick's tie for 3rd at 39. Iggy, his 2017 season to date, 184 carries for 1,212 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's 16th in program history for rushing yards. He's already 6th all-time in program history for total rushing yards at 2,874. Up next for him, about 400.
Just to be clear, you're just counting last year and this year. For
yeah, that has nothing.
Program.
This
right,
is
I'm just saying. Yeah,
this has nothing to do with
These are
Hamburg.
program years, not
right.
just not Iggy's total years,
right.
which are even
this
more.
This is just
amazing.
at Wilson.
Right.
Up next for him, about 400 yards shy, is Alex Austin's 5th place mark of 3,272. Eddie Ortiz, 9 sacks this season. He's tied for 6th in program history with Rodney Hill. That's single season, by the way. So he's 6 with 9. Austin Rose's 13 from his junior year of 2013 is number 1. He also is up to 14.5 on the career list, which is 5th in program history, and Austin Rose's 23.5 is number 1. Now, they only started tracking those, I think, in like 06 or something like that, so we can't go back into the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I am sure Coach Wolver reminds the guys of that often if they start throwing numbers around.
I'm sure that one comes up. So, looking at the stats in the game and the highlights, obviously Iggy could be player of the game. Iggy can be player of the game almost every week.
Yes.
As
probably, Iggy goes, Wilson goes.
Of these 9 games, he probably should have been player of the game 7 or 8 times. And I think he's gotten 3. So we're not going to give it to him this week. There was another guy who's already been player of the game twice. That was a strong consideration. And Nick Johnson, what a heck of a game from him. The nearly double-digit tackles, the huge block. But I think we're going to go a little bit different direction because this really was kind of a momentum shift in the game. Because at the point, you're only up one score.
Yeah, and honestly, you're only up 4 points.
Yeah.
So, a touchdown, you're losing again. So it's kind of a turning point in the game, and I think the whole team kind of fed off that and really kind of buckled down after this point.
So we're going to piggyback off of Johnson's block and give it to the guy who gets the headlines because he scored.
Yeah.
So our player of the game is senior wide receiver and cornerback Angel Martinez. For that, he did have that one nice reception. I did have a cool pick of it, but it was from behind Jurg, focused on Jurg, so you couldn't really make Angel out in the background, but it is a nice pick of Connor throwing the ball to him. But I did get from the opposite end zone Angel's scoop and score, and you can actually see that Wayne Sear definitely got a great pick of Angel on the return as he's right there snapping away. And you can see our former AD, Mr. Polonis, there smiling, seeing Wilson's doing it again. Angel Martinez is our player of the game for the Week 9 win over Hempfield.
Yeah, so Angel's had some key contributions at key times this year, so he's really stepped up. I know you and I were talking about that a little bit, so it's kind of cool to get to see him make, because he's had some big plays, but they're not necessarily the plays that, people are going to remember outside of the game. This is one they will. You return a punt block for a touchdown, people will be talking about that one. So congrats, Angel. Great game.
Absolutely. So we talked about it a little bit already, but milestones and streaks, 550 program wins. That's a lot of wins. That's a lot of wins in less than 75 years, and a lot of them have come over the last 4 decades.
Yeah, well, when we were looking at it about how quickly we've gone, in increments of 50, it's been pretty crazy. So
and again, 42 straight winning seasons. Let's take a look at that incremental numbers we were talking about. I went back into Google newspaper archives and pulled out articles from the milestone wins in Wilson history. Win number 50 coming back in 1959. 9 years later, they got 50 more to win 100. And then 7 years later, they get to 150. 6 years later, they get to 200. 6 years later, to 250. And then 5 years to 300. And now you're in the late 80s and early 90s, and things are starting to roll for the Bulldogs. Yeah. You also notice that they apparently like to play Cedar Crest or that school district, getting them against Cornwall, which I think was the precursor to Cedar Crest. Cedar Crest for 100, Cedar Crest for 250, Cedar Crest for 300. And we also got Lancaster, which I believe is the precursor to McCaskey, which we'll see here next. Coming up on a big one, the most recent one there at the bottom, number 500, was against McCaskey just 4 years ago. So you can see how the wins have just been piling up. 350 in 98, 400 in 04. A Monday game, we got a little a milestone victory on an odd day. Most of the games obviously occurred on Saturdays in probably the first 40 years of Wilson football, and then Fridays since then. It was nice to see that win 450 came against the Mustangs at Mifflin. That always feels good. And then, like I mentioned, win 500 at McCaskey just over 4 years ago. And then the big one, 550, on October 27, 2017 at Hempfield. All right, so let's keep it moving right along and get into our final regular season game preview. and that is against the Conestoga Valley Buckskins at Gursky on Friday, November 3rd. So what do we have to say about them? Well, this is the 12th all-time meeting between Wilson and Conestoga Valley. The Bulldogs hold the edge 9-2, winning last year at Conestoga Valley 42-21 on November 4th, 2016. And the last Buckskins win, well, you got to go back over 4 decades. Now, in fairness, we've only played them 11 times to date, so there haven't been a ton of opportunities.
Right.
But the last CV win, 12-7, the day before Halloween in 1976.
Yeah. So hopefully we can keep that. Hopefully that's another one we keep on our side, this week. So, like you said, if you look at CV's schedule, Conestoga Valley's schedule here, they started with a win, against Ephrata, which they should beat them. Ephrata's moving to Section 3 next year. You have a win versus Solanco, who has come back and is a program that can definitely put up points, and they won 55-54 in overtime. So now all of a sudden you're looking at 2-0, and you're like, okay. Then they lose to Lampeter Strasburg, who again is a strong team, 57-54 in overtime.
57-54.
Yeah. So you look, they scored 49, 55, 54 in 3 weeks and are 2-1. Then they beat McCaskey 28-25.
So 3-1.
Lose to Township, but put up 28 points against Township. Mm-hmm. Now they gave up 49. So they lost there. They beat Lebanon by a touchdown. So that was a little closer than I think some people expected. But then, they have struggled as of late. They lost to Penn Manor by 2 touchdowns. They almost got doubled up against Hempfield. They 64-36. And Warwick, they gave up 55 just last week. So now, they have struggled giving up points. But
yeah, they got nothing on defense, at least of late. They give up 64.
Do have some talent on offense, though.
Oh, absolutely. Jose Barbone is one of the best in the LL.
Yeah, he's getting, big-time recruits.
Any section.
Yeah.
Hempfield scoring 64. I mean, Himmelsbach and Martin Robinson are good players, but, we
held them to 10.
Right. I think, what is Iggy going to do?
Right.
Against this team?
And
now,
this
maybe
was
they
Warwick,
sell out.
and it was Warwick without Grayson, which we've seen they've had some good moments, but, they were down not their quarterback they were coming into the year with and put up 55, you know. So
it'll be interesting to see if the offense can really get things going here and get, 5-6 scores against Conestoga Valley. How much can Iggy do? Will they sell out to stop Iggy and make Jurg beat him with his arm?
You can pretty much count on it because
they'll have to try.
Right. Why wouldn't you? And that's not, I'm not saying that about the other aspects of our team. I'm just saying, if you've got a player like Iggy, every team's going to sell out to stop him. And if they're not going to, they're going to end up paying for it. Then that's fine. I'm okay with that too. Whatever they do, because I'm confident that if they're selling out to stop him, our other guys are going to take advantage. So, you can kind of see from the numbers we should be able to score. And the defense, though, is going to have their work cut out for them because they like to score and they've been able to score against some quality teams too. So. You better watch out because they've got some talent. We just saw a D1 recruit at wide receiver last week make some spectacular plays. There's one that's even maybe more highly touted maybe at CV coming in this week. So better be awake. And if maybe the difference between the players isn't as big, but he's in a system they like to air it out.
For sure.
So you're gonna get to see him pass the ball. So. Be ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hope to see you there this Friday, November 3rd, 7 o'clock at Gursky is kickoff. It is senior night, so come out and cheer on the guys that have been playing with the program, a lot of them since Mighty Mites. A lot of a great tradition there, a lot of big family names graduating, and come out and support them in what could be the final home game for them, depending on what plays out. In Week 10 around District 3, we got some huge games with playoff implications.
Yeah.
Current number 3 seed Red Lion goes to number 6 Dallastown. Number 9 Central York goes to 5A. Number 5 York William Penn. Number 1 team in D3 6A Cumberland Valley travels to the number 1 team in 5A and maybe the number 1 team in any classification of that is Harrisburg. Although Pine Richland 6A may have something to say about that.
Man,
what a game that would be.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, I would love to see that game.
Non-D3 team State College, but Mid-Penn member State College goes to number 5 Central Dauphin in a huge showdown for them.
State College is a good team this year, too.
And number 4 in D3 6A CD East goes to number 2 in 4A Bishop McDevitt.
Right,
now,
heck of a schedule. I know Mike Drago sent out a list of the games a couple weeks, or actually you did.
Actually, I did.
Yeah, he hopped on that. Like, it's kind of crazy what could happen here. So
yeah, so if we'd see Dallastown lose to Red Lion, Cumberland Valley lose to Harrisburg, Central Dauphin lose to State College, and CD East lose to McDevitt, Wilson could possibly move up as high as 4. We think.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of it's a guessing game. But
again, who we're going to play? I mean, until pretty much probably not until Sunday. I mean, you'd like to see it late Friday night or early Saturday.
Yeah, but when does Harrisburg play? They're at Harrisburg, so that's not going to be till Saturday afternoon.
Honestly, I think Cumberland Valley loses. I think they still stay number 1. I think 1 is CV, win or lose. 2's Township, as long as they don't lose, which they're not going to.
Yeah, well, it's going to add. Harrisburg's not going to hurt their strength of schedule at all.
Right. No. And so Cumberland Valley, Manheim Township, Red Lion, CD East, Central Dauphin, Dallastown, Wilson at 7, Hempfield 8, Central York at 9. Only one. Those are the only teams worth mentioning because all the ones 10 and lower, I don't think have any chance of making it. So basically, one of those 9 teams will be left out. Right now, it's Central York. So their game at William Penn, a 5A school, is huge. If they want a chance, they have to win. They lose, they're done.
Yeah, and we, we're in a spot, like I said, it's kind of a guessing game, but we're in a spot where we believe if Wilson wins, they're absolutely in. It would be hard to come up with a scenario where they're not, especially with teams behind them playing 5A schools. It would be tough. However,
Wilson wins.
They need to handle their business.
No worse than 7th. Right. They're not going to jump behind Hempfield after just beating them.
Right.
So you're looking at at worst, I'd say 6-7.
Right.
At best 4.
Yeah.
So it all depends on how the football falls Friday night or Saturday afternoon, depending on what game you're talking about. But I think the biggest ones that impact Wilson will happen Friday night. So sometime Saturday.
Central Dauphin, CD East.
CD East, Central Dauphin, and Red Line Dallastown. Those are the big ones for the Bulldogs. All right, one last milestone or 2 to mention before we leave. The win versus Hempfield was Coach Doms' 135th as head coach. He's now 17 away from passing John Gursky's record of 151. 17 would give him the record. Coach Doms, 1 win away. I've been hyping this up for weeks now. I saw Mike Drago is caught on to it, but Coach Doms is now 1 win away from 400 victories with the program, 264 as an assistant, plus the 135 as head coach. So they beat Conestoga Valley. He's got 400. Crazy.
That's amazing.
Absolutely crazy. All right. So like the Facebook pages, follow us on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram. Like and share. Live game updates with photos and video now via Facebook Live at every Wilson football game. This was a long one, but we got a lot of good information. So
next week will probably be a little shorter.
Yeah, a little bit shorter. So we'll keep it under an hour for sure. Yeah. And
hopefully talking about that district matchup.
Yeah, we'll be talking about playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
So.
All right. Anything else to say before we go?
No.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bulldog Hour. For Justin Raffoff and the Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays. And remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.